Red Bull's secret weapon is gone. The FIA just pulled the plug on a hidden aerodynamic trick worth 0.4 seconds per lap. That number is not small. That number is a championship. Max Verstappen has dominated because his car felt perfect, predictable, locked in. But perfection has a price. What happens when the foundation cracks? The Miami upgrade was not one part. It was 3 systems working as one. Exhaust gases redirected. Airflow accelerated. Downforce multiplied without drag. That synergy delivered 0.9 seconds overnight. Adrian Newey's genius was never about single solutions. It was about connections. But here's what the paddock is not talking about. Break one connection and the entire network trembles. And that is where this story gets complicated. Verstappen adapts faster than anyone, but adaptation requires laps. Laps require time. Formula One gives neither freely. The next 3 races will decide if this is a stumble or a collapse. Because dominance is not about speed, it is about fear. And right now, that fear is evaporating. What comes next will tell us if Red Bull evolves or if the hunt has truly begun. Miami was the moment Red Bull stopped racing and started dominating. Before that weekend, the field could still believe. After it, the gap became a canyon. 0.3 seconds became 0.9 seconds in one stroke. That leap did not come from luck. It came from a concept so clever it changed how the car breathed. And every engineer in the paddock felt it the instant Verstappen disappeared on lap 3. Sector 2 told the real story. 0.4 seconds gained in high-speed corners alone. Rear stability metrics jumped 22%. Adrian Newey's post-race words hinted at something deeper than parts. He spoke of synergy of systems talking to each other. This was not an upgrade, it was a revelation, but here is what no broadcast covered. That revelation depended on perfect harmony. Remove one voice and the choir falls silent. And that is where this story gets complicated. When performance relies on delicate integration, any external cut ripples through everything. What happens when you remove the concept the entire package was built around? The answer shapes the championship's next chapter. Because Miami was not just about pace, it was about control. And control is far harder to rebuild than raw speed. The chasing teams know this. They are already hunting for the weak link. The FIA did not punish. They corrected. Technical Directive TD024 arrived quietly but landed like a bomb. It targets exhaust routing that channels hot gases toward rear wing end plates, accelerating airflow under the diffuser. The cost for Red Bull between 0.35 seconds and 0.45 seconds per lap. This was not guesswork. It was data from 3 teams who independently chased the same idea within 2 races. Mark Hughes called this the most significant mid-season intervention since 2022. His words carry weight because he has seen every regulatory war this sport produces. The system Red Bull relied on did more than add grip. It created language. The floor suspension and aero balance all spoke through that exhaust effect. Silence it, and the car stops talking to the driver. That changes everything. And that is where this story gets complicated. When a car's behavior shifts at its core, the driver who lives on the edge faces a new reality. Verstappen finds limits others cannot see. But what happens when the limit moves? The answer defines the championship's next phase. Because the FIA did not just change a rule, they changed the conversation between man and machine. And that conversation decides titles. Verstappen does not drive fast. He drives where others hesitate. Right at the edge where stability blurs into chaos. That is where he finds time no one else reaches. But that style demands one thing absolutely: predictability. His throttle application stays 98.
2% consistent because he trusts the rear end. Now that trust is tested. What happens when the car that felt locked in suddenly feels nervous? Andrea Stella framed it perfectly.
When balance shifts slightly, the driver at the limit feels it first and hardest. Post-directive data shows Verstappen's sector 2 times now vary by 0.2 seconds more. He leads by 32 points, yet A0. 3 seconds per lap deficit across 5 races could swing the title by 15 points. The paradox cuts deep. The driver who gains most from perfection loses most when it fades, and that is where this story gets complicated. Verstappen adapts faster than anyone. See his 2022 turnaround from Bahrain to Saudi Arabia. But adaptation takes laps. Laps take time. Formula One never gives time freely. Because Verstappen is not alone in this new reality. The other Red Bull driver faces a different challenge entirely, one that could reshape the constructor battle in ways no one predicted. Confidence, not speed, might become the deciding factor. Isaac Hadjar faces a challenge unrelated to raw speed. The young Red Bull driver relies on car balance consistency to unlock his potential. Post-directive simulations show his lap time variance increased by 31% versus Verstappen's 18%. That gap matters more than it appears. When behavior shifts overnight, experience becomes armor. Hadjar does not have that armor yet. Uncertainty becomes a performance penalty. Red Bull's junior program follows one rule: develop talent in stable cars, then promote regulation volatility, shatters that timeline. The Constructor Championship adds pressure. Red Bull leads by 48 points, a buffer requiring both cars to deliver. Junior drivers typically need 3 to 4 race weekends to adjust to major aero changes. Red Bull may not have that luxury. Every session now tests resilience, not just speed, and that is where this story gets complicated. While Red Bull manages its lineup, the hunters are not waiting. McLaren sees an opening. Mercedes smells opportunity. The grid's new equation is simple. If Red Bull's second car becomes a variable instead of an asset, the championship fight widens. Dominance is not just about the fastest car, it is about two cars executing under pressure. Pressure is exactly what the chasing teams are about to apply. McLaren and Mercedes are not waiting, they are moving. The MCL39 upgrade for Barcelona was designed for regulation volatility, featuring adaptable aero mapping. Mercedes' 16 now shows the strongest straight-line efficiency on the grid. Lando Norris and George Russell know this window is narrow. Both teams have positioned themselves to strike. The data tells a different story. McLaren's Sector 3 correlation improved by 12% post-Miami. Mercedes' tire degradation rate is now best on the grid. Toto Wolff framed it with precision. When the leader stumbles, you do not celebrate. You prepare. Championship math supports them. If Red Bull loses 0.3 seconds per lap, McLaren could close within 5 points by Silverstone. McLaren saved 2 development tokens. Mercedes reallocated wind tunnel time to rear-end stability. And that is where this story gets complicated. While others prepare to attack, Red Bull's greatest strength has never been their car. It has been their response time. That response is already underway, hidden at Milton Keynes. Counting Red Bull out has never been safe. The next section reveals what their engineering team is building in secret. The development race no one is watching might decide the championship before summer break. Red Bull is not standing still.
While the paddock debates, their engineers have already modeled 3 alternative exhaust concepts. Within 72 hours of the directive, CFD simulations were running at Milton Keynes. This is not panic. This is procedure. But procedure needs time.
Formula One does not give time. Adrian Newey's record matters. After 2022's ground effect changes, Red Bull found recovery within 2 races. The team allocated 8% of remaining cost cap to regulation response. Components for a rear-end redesign are in manufacturing, potentially debuting at Hungary. Red Bull's simulator correlation sits at 94.7%, highest on the grid. They test solutions virtually faster than others build them, but recovery takes laps. Laps take races. Championship math reveals the stakes. Recover 0.2 seconds of the 0.4 seconds lost by Austria, and Verstappen's title probability stays above 85%. Wait until Belgium, and it drops to 60%. History shows Verstappen and Newey thrive in adversity. But history does not guarantee tomorrow. The next 3 races will reveal if Red Bull's response is fast enough. The real battle is not on track. It is happening in design rooms, in simulations, in decisions no outsider sees. Austria is the first test. The Red Bull Ring's high-speed corners stress rear stability more than any track. Lose more than 0.3 seconds there, and the narrative shifts forever. Silverstone follows where McLaren's home advantage and Mercedes' straight-line strength could converge. Hungary becomes the deadline. If Red Bull has not stabilized the car by then, rivals will have proven the vulnerability is structural. This window decides if dominance was built on fragile optimization or resilient architecture. Championship math makes it concrete. Verstappen can afford 1 DNF with a 0.2 seconds per lap advantage, but if the gap closes under 0.1 seconds, every position fight becomes title deciding. The real story was never about lap time, it was about control. When Red Bull dictated pace, they won without stress. Now they must react under pressure. That mental shift matters as much as the technical one. Pressure creates mistakes. Mistakes create opportunities. And that is where this story reaches its turning point. This was never just about a system being cut. It was about how fragile dominance really is. Red Bull looked untouchable, perfect balance, perfect execution. But now we see what was underneath, a key concept, a hidden advantage. Remove that piece, and the picture changes. Not completely, but enough. Enough for rivals to close in. Enough for the future to become uncertain. In Formula One, The moment you stop fearing the leader is the moment the leader stops winning. Right now, for the first time in 2 years, the entire grid is breathing a little easier.